Good afternoon, friends, both those friends who are live or about to be joining us live in person as we gather together for our weekly offering of prayer and encouragement, streamed from my office here at Grace Episcopal Church in Traverse City, Michigan. I'm Father Jim Para, the rector of this beautiful and wonderful community, and I'm here as I am every week to share our short service of prayer, daily or now weekly meditations from Celtic Treasure by J. Philip Newell. We are still in the second week of the 7 weeks of days that we're sharing together in this book, which should take us through the year. Day 4 of the second week. The week is called Journey and Promise. Then, additionally, I'm going getting a little bit more artsy, a little bit more gentle, hopefully. And I've got this wonderful story that's meant to begin Advent from a book called Liturgy for the Whole Church by Susan K. Bach. And this is a book from Church Publishing, which is the Episcopal Church's publishing arm, that is full of wonderful bits and pieces that we can use during services in specific seasons. And in fact, we will be using a creedal statement in place of the Nicene Creed, and prayers of the people, and a confession from this book when we enter into Advent at the end of this month. And I'll talk a little bit more about why I chose that for today in a minute, but as long as I can make some pitches, as we are talking about Advent during the Wednesdays in Advent at 7 p.m., I will be hosting a Zoom book group. We will have two devotional type things available for people during Advent. One is our usual that will be available, kind of a short thing. The other one is, and I return to this book every so many years, it's a reader edited by Mark A. Villano called Time to Get Ready. And I love it. It makes Advent, every time I go through it in Advent, it refreshes both my understanding of what it means to wait on God. And it's just kind of helps build me up in my discipleship. So I will invite anyone who wants to get their own copy of Time to Get Ready by Mark A. Villano and join us during the Wednesdays in Advent, 7 p.m. for a Zoom book group that I'll be hosting. Let's see. I think I have two bits of information. One is that we will not, again, will not be meeting in person for worship this weekend. Our services will be streamed online as they normally are, and I am deeply grateful both to those who commune with us and pray with us and worship with us online, and for all those who make that happen. And I guess the other data point is kind of in the same line. I had some questions about how it is that we make the decision whether or not to come together for in-person worship. What to us is too risky and what isn't. And more goes into it than just this. But I invite you, if you like, to I'm going to drop in the comments the primary source we use, which is the My Start map. And basically, if you open that up, and let's see if I can I'm going to share this tab. What happens is that you'll see that there's this My Safe Start map, and there's these color codes, and the color codes are by entire region. And you'll see that right now the Traverse City region, which includes all these counties, is at a D. What we have decided, myself and the vestry, is that we're just going to focus on our county, Grand Traverse County. So we're clicking on that, and then we go up here to epidemic spread and new cases. And basically any time that new cases are above this number here, which is 70 per million per day, is when we're going to go ahead and not meet in person for worship. So right now we're at 88.8. And as you can see, we're actually kind of on a downward trend. So if that continues, we will be able to pretty shortly come together and worship in person for those who choose. So I guess wear your mask out there, folks. So that's the information that I kind of had to offer. And I'm certainly feeling a little peppier than I was last week. I'm looking forward to worshiping this weekend and all that entails. So let's prepare our space for prayer. I went ahead. I've got my incense acquired from the Good Brothers at the Holy Cross Monastery in West Park, New York. So let's see here. Takes a second. There we go. So I've got some incense coming to us. And then I will light a candle. And let's go ahead, before we begin our prayer together, take a few deep breaths. We light a light in the name of the God who creates life, in the name of the Savior who loves life, in the name of the Spirit who is the fire of life. Let us be still and aware of God's presence within us and all around. Jacob remained in the land along with Rachel, whom he loved. They prospered and grew as a family, but still there were times of struggle. Among their children was Joseph, whom they especially loved. He was the unexpected child of their older years. Yet Joseph's brothers were jealous and secretly sold him into slavery. Many years passed, and Joseph remained a servant in Egypt. But Pharaoh, the king of the land, had a dream that troubled him. He saw 7 fat cows eating happily in a field by the river, and out of the water came 7 thin cows who ate up the fat cows. But no one in his court could help him with the dream, so Joseph, the son of Israel, was sent for. He was young, but he was wise, and said to the king, "The 7 fat cows are 7 years of plenty, and the 7 thin cows are 7 years of hunger. The years of hunger will eat up the land." And so the king was taught by a slave. Egypt prepared for the famine, and its people were fed. A golden chain was hung around Joseph's neck, and the king placed power in the young man's hands. Egypt survived the hungry years, but other nations suffered, and they flocked to Pharaoh's court for help. Among the hungry were brothers of Joseph who had betrayed him. And when he saw them, he wept over them, and they were frightened, but he forgave them. "Do not be afraid," he said. "God sent me ahead of you to save life." Joseph's family joined him in Egypt, and they survived the years of famine. That is, of course, a paraphrase of the book of Genesis. So I have this story, an essay, if you want to call it that, and it's from Liturgy for the Whole Church by Susan K. Bach. And the story is called "How Long Does a Night Take?" or just "How Long Does Night Take?" And it's for the beginning of Advent, possibly the first Sunday. And Even though Advent is still 3 weeks away, or perhaps just 3 weeks away, depending on whether or not you're planning for it, it feels kind of like we're entering into Advent already. We're in this moment as a people where we have but to wait and see what comes next. What's done has been done, what will be. And all we can do is sort of pray and prepare ourselves to respond to what comes next with whatever God gives us. However, we're able to do justice and love mercy and walk humbly in the season to come. So I'm offering to you this story. How long does night take? Advent is the night of the Christian year, Susan Bach says. As a Jew begins the day at sunset, so Christians begin the church year in the darkening quiet of ever-deepening winter, hushing our frenzy, readying for Christ. When my friend Justin was very young and I was tucking him into bed, he asked me, "Susan, how long does a night take?" What an amazing question, and one I had forgotten to ask for a very long time. At the start of the night of our year, we might well ask it now, how long does night take? If you're sick and in pain, one night takes about 100 years. If you're alone and waiting for love, one night takes forever. If you're a child and night seems a waste of perfectly good playtime, the night stretches on to eternity. If you're a reluctant Messiah, sweating blood in a garden while the whole city parties, the night is terrifyingly long. Night is all about waiting, and waiting is about helplessness. Waiting for dawn or light or hope or love or relief, we are helpless to turn back the darkness or hurry the new day. All we can do is nothing. All we can do is wait. But that very helplessness makes every time of waiting, if we will let it be so, a time of waiting for God. Every wait can become holy, artful and lovely, a waiting for God. We have no choice. Advent makes us wait. But Advent asks us how we are waiting. With anger, resentment, sleepiness, boredom, and despair? Or with desire? Because waiting is all about that too. Desire. If we let ourselves feel our desire and bravely name it, then waiting can become the birthplace of hope and faith and especially love. Advent is the church's night watch, our season of waiting. The helplessness and desire in waiting make every wait in the end a wait for God. The good news of Advent is that if we wait, while we wait, in the waiting, God comes. The waiting itself is the thing, the very place we can meet God anew. I'm terrible at waiting. I hate to be put on hold on the phone or held back by a slow driver or made to wait in the grocery line, and our instant hurry-up world doesn't teach me patience. But waiting is mysteriously necessary to all that is becoming, says Gertrude Müller-Nelson, and especially to the becoming of souls. So every time of waiting is soul work and a wait for God. I once heard of a 95-year-old woman who fell in the snow on her way to church and couldn't get up. She could have become angry, frightened, and cold. She could have given up, fallen asleep. She could have died. Instead, she made snow angels. She filled up her waiting with energy and action, beauty and warmth, and it kept her alive. Near his end, approaching Jerusalem, Jesus gives us a clue to such a brave and holy, artful waiting. The people are full of Passover joy in the hope a Messiah will come, but he, sensing danger, is waiting with dread. Trudging along, he sees a fig tree, heavy with buds, and his eyes are drawn upward, where he notices, suddenly, spring. Remembering the promise of spring unstoppable after winter's death, he says, when everything around you is dark and violent and fear, stand up, raise your heads, your redemption is near. Stand up, raise your heads, look to heaven, hold to spring when winter draws down your gaze and your heart. In this very darkness, especially here, God is near. Every time of waiting is a wait for God, a wait for peace in the Middle East, the results of a test, the conception of a child or that child's maturing, a wait for love or an end to grief, or pain, or life itself, or the rapture of the Lord. If we will keep company with our waiting, keeping it warm and alive with desire and hope, keeping it awake like a mother attentive to her baby's breath, feeding it with faith, if we look up and not lose heart, then while we wait, in the waiting, because of the waiting, God will come. How long does night take? When the waiting is holy and artful and filled up with God, it takes just enough. I almost want to say amen. That feels like a sermon, doesn't it? Maybe we'll all pretend like I didn't just read it, and I'll use it from the pulpit sometime soon. In the meantime, I invite you to gather your prayers and your prayer requests and to join me. In the silence of our hearts or in spoken words, let us give thanks for the gift of this day and pray for the life of the world. Who are you praying for? I am praying for all those who work while we wait, all those all around the country who are counting ballots, who are keeping faith with the way that we collectively have decided things will be done, who work even as those pound on their windows, both metaphorically and in some cases liberally, telling them and trying to manipulate the outcome. I'm praying for those who have faith to count and to work, and also with those who have faith to sit and wait and let God be with them in the waiting. All right. You speak to us in all things, O God, in the rising of the sun and in its setting, in the dreams of the night and the encounters of the day. Let us know you in the whole of life, in both the blessings and the betrayals of our lives. Heal our hurts, open our hearts, that as families and nations we may be faithful to one another. The blessing of heaven, the blessings of earth, the blessings of sea and of sky, on those we love this day, and on every human family. The gifts of heaven, the gifts of earth, the gifts of sea and sky. Thank you for joining me, either today or later in this week or month or whenever you stumble by. And until we see each other again, online or in person, or whenever is next, may the peace of the Lord be always with you.